Good morning, everyone, and happy Wednesday. The market is okay this morning. It's up a little bit from yesterday, but nothing too convincing just yet. We do have Microsoft holding up okay from their earnings report yesterday. It's up like $12, which is pretty decent. Google, on the other hand, is still trading a little bit lower. Overall, Tom, it just seems like an okay type of day. Boeing's lower from earnings. Spotify wasn't looking too good either. And it's just, I don't know, the market's looking pretty tough overall.
Yeah, it is. Not good to see Spotify and Boeing moving lower again, Mike. Poor Spotify here fell below $100 even. This is definitely not a good thing to see today out of them. Boeing down in pre-market is not good either. I know Boeing's had a lot of issues, Mike, over the past few months kind of getting going here. And with them kind of breaking below that big support this morning, it's definitely a pretty bad move to the downside. So hopefully Boeing can hold up around 150, Mike. That seems like the next major support coming up.
All right, there we go. So looking at some of the stocks that were down the most yesterday, of course, Tesla is the first one that comes to mind as it closed around 12% lower. Right now, Tesla's up around 2.5%. Still, though, it's not like it's any like crazy momentum. Like, it's up, it's looking okay, but still, like, it's still down quite a bit.
Yeah, it is, and it's sitting like right around this area of resistance, like really close to $900. That's a pretty big even level there, and who knows, maybe we'll end up breaking above that this morning, Mike, and it looks like we might. It has some good momentum right now, and after a 12% drop yesterday, I'd hope it can come back at least a little bit this morning, so we better see some good price action out of Tesla, or else we're going to have to hear everyone buying puts all day long again, because man, that move down to the downside was insane yesterday, Mike, and those puts exploded.
Yeah, check out like BABA and the China stocks. Actually, they're looking pretty decent.
Yeah, they are. They kind of gapped up, kind of like Tesla, but they're coming back up to that pre-market resistance again. And you're right, they look pretty good, actually. I like this type of setup here, and, it looks nice. Even Baidu's looking pretty good this morning again. So glad to see this out of the China plays, Mike. I know they've been some of the worst hit stocks out of the whole market lately. Poor BABA here. What were they at? $81.80? Like, when you look at that on the daily chart, it's just insane to see the moves that it's been having.
Yep, no doubt. So yeah, they're looking decent today. Some of the other stocks like Zoom and SPCE are also looking okay, but still, it's like they're only up like 1% or so. So we'll see what happens. On the red side of things, Tom. Actually, you brought up Visa. That's booming. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, yesterday with earnings, they kind of flew under the radar a little bit, but they flew up from around that $200 support all the way up to highs this morning of $221. So they definitely had a nice explosion. I will say though, Mike, it looks like they had a big pop in market open. Now they're coming right back down after that big move, but they're still up 7.5%. That's pretty big for a nice credit card company like Visa. And Mike, I know if we go to Visa's daily chart, they've been another stock that's kind of been beaten down lately, so it's nice to see them recover up.
Yep. All right, yeah, that's interesting. How's like MasterCard doing?
Yeah, they're probably doing pretty good too. Yeah, it looks like they're doing decent. They're back up to 360, but they're not quite as explosive as Visa, of course, but I know MasterCard should be reporting pretty soon. Yeah, they're going to be reporting tomorrow, so that'll be a big one as well to kind of like end the week here. I know that Visa and MasterCard are the two biggest credit card companies.
All right, and then Amex is pretty big too. But yeah, Amex, I was just looking at Amex, AXP, and they weren't running as much as I thought they would have.
Yeah, let's check that out intraday. Yeah, they're kind of lagging behind a little bit. I will say, though, they already reported earnings, so maybe that's kind of why. I feel like maybe if they would report tomorrow, kind of like MasterCard is, I think they might have gotten more movement with Visa, but, they already reported, so we're kind of already seeing, like, what they're going to do. But, yeah, I hope they end up moving back up, Mike. That move down so far with earnings wasn't terrible, and I think they could definitely come back if the other credit card companies start to turn things around again.
All right, so looking at some of these stocks to the downside, check out Spotify. It's down like 8%. I know we talked about them a little bit, but they reported earnings. They're not looking the best. We also talked about Boeing a little bit. They're down 6%. Those are like the two stocks leading my watch list to the downside. Boeing's really falling off the board. It looks like Netflix is still tanking lower, Tom. Holy crap. Netflix is all the
Man,
way down to 194, basically.
wow, so they did fall below 200 yesterday. Definitely not a good move to see with them. Man, I was really hoping $200 would be a nice psychological level for them to move off of, but they're still going lower. It's definitely still accelerating here with this sell-off. Not good to see, Mike, but man, I will say, so far today, it's not looking good, and I feel bad for a lot of these big tech plays, Mike. Even Twitter, I know it's nothing crazy, and they're getting bought out, so it's definitely not the most insane move in the world, but it's down 1.8%, which is not good at all. We have Facebook back down again 1.3%. Although I will say at market open, they're looking pretty good compared to how they were looking in after hours yesterday. But all these stocks open pretty far in the red again, Mike. It's insane to see these stocks continuing lower. I am happy though that a lot of my watch list is back in the green today quite a bit. I did notice like a lot of the growth plays like AMC, XPEV, and stocks like that are doing really well.
Gotcha. All right, so hold on. So looking at Twitter really quickly, right now it is at like you can see like $48.90. It keeps shifting around, but if you buy Twitter shares right now, you'd get bought out for around $54.20 per share if the deal does end up going through, and that's close to a 10% return. Now I don't know the exact day Elon is supposed to close out the deal and everything like that, but a 10% return for an acquisition stock deal like this, it's not too bad.
It's really not, and I feel like it's pretty. I'm not going to say it's like pretty set in stone because anything can happen, of course, with like the regulatory votes and maybe the shareholders will vote it down or something. But I will say, Mike, as far as Twitter's concerned, I am a little bit worried about the deal not going through. I do think that the deal will go through because I really believe in Elon and I think that he really wants to get this. But I do believe, though, that there is some risk with this. And, if the deal doesn't go through, I'm sure Twitter will end up tanking back off. But I'm pretty sure he'll end up getting it, Mike, especially after everything like the board has said, plus Jack Dorsey and just everything that's going on. It's just crazy to see the stock moving lower, Mike. I honestly would have thought we'd be moving a little bit closer towards 54 rather than moving further away.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, I mean, normally that's how it would work. A lot of times with acquisitions or mergers or anything like that, you just get closer and closer to that buyout level as investors become more and more confident with the deal going through. But, when stocks tank down and maybe if people get a little worried that it's not going to go through, we see what we're seeing right now. So, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, it is. And who knows, maybe we'll see better price action to the upside over the next few days or something like that. But, we'll have to see what happens with all the news and the headlines. And, Mike, I'm sure like once we start to get set dates and stuff like that, I'm sure it might get a little bit more volatile. So we'll have to see what happens. But definitely cool to see the price action this morning. Hopefully it starts moving back up towards $50. I think that would make for some nice movement. But, I know Tesla was falling off yesterday, Mike. And like we said at market open, it's coming back in a big way. Now it's up 4%. And, Mike, I noticed a lot of these growth plays are up quite a bit. Like NIO's almost up 8% now.
Crazy. Yeah, that is insane. I was actually just scrolling through some of these plays, especially the China plays, and they are really, really running. NIO, Queb, Baba, and a lot more. They're looking really good.
They are, and even like some of those smaller EV companies like LI and XPEV are moving. So lots of great movement out of these stocks. It seems like that whole sector, Mike, is starting to recover up, at least over the past couple days, in a pretty nice way. I really hope that these China plays get back to normal, Mike, because as we know, the past couple of years has been just insane with them, right? Whether it's China, investigating companies or whether it's them reporting fake numbers or what it is. It's been insane to see all the crazy, I guess you could say all the crazy things that have happened to the China stocks. It's just so unfortunate, especially for some of those poor companies like LI and DD. Remember all the poor movement with DD, Mike? I feel kind of bad for that one, especially when they IPO'd.
Yeah, oh my. I never realized it got this low. Like, I knew it was bad, but I didn't know DD went from 18 down to $1.65.
Yeah, I didn't either. I kind of was thinking it would have went more flat, maybe around like $3 or $4, but yeah, it just kept falling down. And Yeah, it created a new low even earlier this week. So crazy movement out of that stock, Mike. Definitely not holding up as well as stocks like Baba or other ones like that. But man, at least it's coming up today with the other China plays. That's a plus, but I'm still worried about it in the shorter term.
Yep. All right, good stuff. Let's check out Netflix intraday really quickly. I was just going through a couple different stocks, and it looks promising right now. You know, you would think that after such a terrible past like 5 or 6 trading days that it would have some sort of upwards bounce. It's also right at that $200 support slash resistance, so you would think that we'd see a nice pop over here.
Yeah, I would think so too. You know, kind of double bottom from that low of after hours yesterday. So definitely coming up in a good way here. You're right, $200 seems pretty big. And if we could break above that, I'd love to see Netflix maybe pop up, a nice like 2 or 3%. That would definitely make for some nice movement. So I hope it happens, Mike. And looking at him on that daily chart, like we said at the beginning of the stream, I just can't believe they're still selling off. This is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If today closes red, that'll be the 6th red day in a row. But man, 5 red days in a row so far since that initial drop is definitely not good to see.
And then another thing is like it's not just 6 red days; it's like 6 horrible red days. You know, like these were giant candles for the most part. Like especially it was mainly that one earnings release day, but even though the other candles don't look too big, like there's still multiple percentage point moves.
Yeah, they are. It's just that 140% drop kind of masks how big the other moves were. I definitely see what you mean there. Because even yesterday, Mike, like what was it down? Like 4 or 5%? It was definitely a pretty big move there. So hopefully we see it start to recover back. And Mike, you would think that we might see a recovery pretty soon because like we said, it's been multiple big red days to the downside. And I'm not saying that we're going to, blast back up to 350 or anything, of course, but I think we might see a bit of like a pop, maybe back up to like 225 or something. I feel like just for the sake of price action or even just shorts covering, we might see a pop back up.
Yeah. Yep. I can see it. All right. So we have Dennis saying, enjoy you guys. Thanks for all. Well, thank you, Dennis. We really appreciate that. Thank you all for joining today's stream. You guys know the drill. So just let us know what stocks you're watching and we can definitely take a look at them. But I will say, Tom, the market is not looking too bad today. Stocks, well, at least some of them are popping up. Some of them are still tanking off, but it's really not looking too bad. How is the S&P 500 holding up?
It's doing quite well, I will say. The SPY is coming back up today, at least so far. Ever since pre-market, we're actually like right around the opening of like pre-market's price here. I should say like we're right around the price the SPY was like last night at midnight, I should say. Keep in mind the SPY trades like 24.5 now, but looking at it, it's kind of popping back up today. Nothing too crazy yet though, Mike. I still think that given what we're seeing, we could see a bit of a downtrend again if these stocks turn around, but I'm happy to see stocks in the green today. I'll definitely take it after what we've been seeing, but we definitely need more upwards movement. I'm really happy that Microsoft reported great earnings, Mike. I was really glad to see them have good numbers. If they would have tanked down, I would have been pretty worried about the market here this morning. I know Google didn't do the best, but they're coming back so far today, so that's good to see. Maybe the news of their $70 billion buyback is finally hitting the market.
It's like the market's finally like, maybe this news is actually good. It's like sometimes these reactions are pretty delayed. I mean, I'm not saying that Google's popping up because of that news, but I know what you mean. Because that is really good news with that $70 billion buyback. I think that represents close to 5% of their total shares, that's pretty big.
It is. I mean, and they're only down 1.9%. So that's, I'm just saying like 5% compared to the move down they had isn't anything too crazy. So I hope that it does recover back. It's looking pretty good so far. And man, whenever you said that they were having a $70 billion buyback yesterday, I was thinking in my head, why are they dropping so much? Obviously, their other numbers matter too, but they weren't terrible. It's like they only barely missed on their EPS. They barely missed on revenue. So it's not like we saw anything too crazy. I will say though, Mike, with the way they're popping back up, definitely looks like another one of those theta burners. And we had that IV crush. So I'm sure that anyone who played earnings on this one got screwed.
Yeah, big time. Actually, I want to pull that up. I bet it's going to be brutal, Tom, because it's Wednesday. It's not like it's like on a Monday. So that those weekly options are much more volatile. So let's see. If we go to this week's chain, oh, yes,
Oh, it
it's
is
bad.
brutal.
All right, so the calls are down anywhere from like 50% to 90%. The puts are down anywhere from like 10% to 90%. Like, that's brutal in one day. Like, this is why it's not a good idea to gamble on any earnings, but especially like when IV's high to begin with. Like, and then Tom, another thing is like these options that are down, let's say 70% at the money, they still are worth like $3,500. So they went from like 12 grand yesterday to like 3,600 today.
Yeah, I'm looking at that. That's insane to see, Mike. And you have to go all the way on the chain on the weekly options, all the way in the money to $2,400 on those puts to finally see any type of green. And then even some of those strikes aren't even in the green because of how crazy like the spreads and everything are. So it's just insane to see how those options move there, Mike. And that's why we don't play earnings. I know that there's situations where you can make a lot, like for example, like whenever Tesla had that big move up and stuff, of course, you can still make some decent returns. And even like with Boeing, for example, I'm sure that some of those puts are looking pretty good today, but in the end it's really risky. You're not always going to catch those winners. And man, that's just so telling, Mike. Both calls and puts are down. Like even like the puts, for example, which should have played out well, are still down like 40% at the money. That's just nuts.
Alrighty, let's see. We have Keisha saying Enphase got a nice pop. Let's see, Enphase, how's it doing? Oh wow,
They're
it's
actually
looking
leading
good.
my watch list, Mike.
Yeah, I didn't even see it on mine either. Hold on.
Yeah, I picked this one up early this morning and threw it on the chart. It was up 11.25%. It's kind of breaking that high of yesterday and after hours too. So I'm really happy to see this one running up, Mike. I know that Enphase had a great report on their last earnings as well, and they initially had a great move to the upside too. So glad to see them recovering. And I know Enphase has been one of those stocks that's been holding up very well.
All right. Yeah, Enphase is actually looking really good. How is Run doing?
RUN, let's check that out. Sunrun here. They're kind of moving up with Enphase here. It's nothing crazy, but they are up 4.27%. I will say though, Mike, the way that these stocks have been running down, these uptrends of 4 or 5% aren't anything crazy. You can see how small 4% represents on the price action here. Like it's not really much movement at all, but it is holding at $20 very well. They have earnings coming up in about a week as well. So hopefully Sunrun starts to move back up, especially if Enphase keeps going today. I think they might start following along.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, Enphase and Sunrun are in the same industry basically, solar, and normally they move together. So that's why we're looking at both of them. But I feel like Enphase is more of like the powerhouse company. I just feel like it moves better a lot of times too. So we'll see.
Yeah, I do too. They're big, Mike, and I know you've been loving them for the past, like on this big dip they had to the downside. I know you were hyping them up a lot around those lows, and man, it's been playing out very well so far. I will say they've been holding up a lot better than most growth stocks, Mike. Like if we go look at Zoom or something like that, it just continually made new lows, whereas like Enphase and FSLR were holding up.
No doubt. And I think part of the reason for that is the rise in like oil prices. So, like when you have oil prices booming like that, people look at other forms of energy, and solar's one of them.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Mike. I'm sure that definitely played a role. And I would think that would even help like Tesla and a few of the EV companies, but I'm sure it has, but obviously they have the other issues to worry about as well. But I definitely see what you mean there with the solar plays.
Yeah, for sure. And then we have George mentioning AMD. Let's check it out. It's up 3% today. It's looking okay right now. It's still under that $90 level. It has earnings coming up. But today the price action has actually been really good. It's been nothing but straight up.
Yeah, it's like you said, straight to the upside here, breaking some good levels. I know like $86 was a pretty big resistance for AMD, and they're blasting right back above that. Like you said, they're trying to come back up towards 90. That'll be a pretty big level up there around 90 to 91. Definitely have had a lot of resistance there the past couple of weeks. So hopefully it keeps running back, Mike. This is a pretty good recovery so far today out of AMD. And it's almost like you said, almost back up to that opening price of yesterday. So hopefully this nice movement continues. But man, like you said, it's been straight up today. I would have to expect some type of price action, maybe some like pullbacks or a little bit of consolidation here in a little bit. Looks like we are starting to see a little bit of red come in.
Alrighty. We have Raymond saying, will Boeing pull down the airlines today? Let's take a look. So Boeing, dang, it's down 9%. Holy crap. The airlines are moving kind of by themselves. I don't think Boeing will drag them down.
Yeah, I don't think so either. They've been doing quite well, and the airlines had great earnings over the past couple weeks. They reported great booking numbers. They also have they reported a lot of Americans are traveling again, which is great. So I'm glad to see that uptick in travel. I think that'll really help not just airlines, but maybe even like cruise lines too. And even cruise lines are doing decent today. But yeah, like looking at Delta, Mike, like they kind of went straight up today. Same thing with American and other airlines. So glad to see this nice price action. I think, Mike, with Boeing, I feel like that the airlines, if they would have went down, I feel like they would have drug Boeing down more than Boeing dragging them down, because Boeing just has so much to contend with their military contracts, and then of course they have to worry about like their planes crashing and stuff like that, whereas these other airlines, they just buy Boeing's planes, for example. So I don't think that they're going to make too much of an impact on Boeing.
Yeah, that's a fair point. All right. But yeah, I mean, market's looking pretty decent, Tom. What are some of your favorite setups today? Because the SPY is breaking its highs by the minute.
Yeah, it is. It's actually coming back up in a pretty big way here. I will say the SPY itself has been having some very interesting moves lately. I will say the way SPY's popping up above like 420 is pretty big there. That was a pretty big intraday support from yesterday, and there was also a lot of resistance around there in pre-market. So to see them breaking out like this is awesome to see, Mike. Like we talked about yesterday, earlier in the video, there's some of these credit card companies like MasterCard and Visa are exploding, and they're still going up here. Like MasterCard is, like we said with some of these other plays, just straight up ever since market open. Visa's exploding with those earnings, looking quite well here. So glad to see this, Mike. Like I said, these credit card companies have been beaten down over the past couple months, so glad to see them kind of recovering here today. Definitely some nice moves. Visa's almost up 10%. That's definitely no slouch there. Looks like we have BABA also like climbing up, Mike. I know we mentioned these China plays a lot, but they just kept going. So we're definitely seeing some big moves out of some of these beaten down plays. And even stocks like Peloton, Mike, like some of these growth plays are having pretty good moves so far.
All right, there we go. I have not looked at Peloton in quite a bit. With everything going on in the markets and everything, it's I don't know. I feel like yeah, it's having a decent day today, but it's been so rough for Peloton over the past year. Like, I know it's been rough for many stocks, but I feel like Peloton specifically, it's been like excessively bad for, because not only is their stock falling a lot, but they have serious fundamental problems. Like for example, like Peloton and Zoom both kind of had like a COVID spike, but Zoom continues to post record revenue every single earnings. They are also just like doing good actually, while Peloton is just just struggling a lot.
Yeah, and a lot of analysts, that's a really good comparison, Mike, because a lot of analysts were expecting that Zoom's numbers would fall similarly to what we saw with Peloton, and that never happened. And I think that's why Zoom's holding up a little bit better. Of course, Zoom's still down a lot over the past few years. You definitely can't, get away from that. But Peloton is also down a lot. It seems like, from 171 down to $20, Mike, is brutal. And they also had issues with like people getting hurt on their machines, and that just wasn't good for the headlines there for a couple months. And like you said, the fundamental issues are definitely still around. And I know that they lost a lot of subscribers, Mike. I remember, you could subscribe to their like workout plans and stuff like that, like on the Peloton. And I know a lot of people canceled those as like, they started going biking again in real life and getting back to the gym and stuff like that, whereas we still see people using Zoom and stuff. So it's interesting that Peloton fell that much more. But Mike, that's a really good comparison, because you're right. Like analysts were really saying the same thing about Zoom, and that never really ended up playing out that way.
Yeah, and then Hunter also added that Zoom's actually profitable and that Peloton is trash. Yeah, I definitely know what you mean. It's been pretty rough for Peloton lately, and Zoom, to be fair, in terms of stock performance. But as we said, Zoom is actually a good company.
Actually, Mike, looking at Peloton on the quarterly data, I will say in Q4 of 2021, they did have a bit of an uptick again, but as we can see, that revenue definitely started falling back down in a big way there throughout 2021. So we'll have to see how they end up doing on this next report. Maybe they can recover, Mike, if they end up, posting another gain on the revenue there, but I'm just not sure what they're going to report. And it's obviously a really hard one to gauge lately with everything going on. And Mike, I would think that with them getting back to the summer months, or I should say, with us getting now into spring, I would think maybe the revenue would start to dip back down again, but we'll have to see what happens here.
Yep. All right. We have Sean saying, on behalf of Elon, higher than 420 is nice. There we go. Yeah, I mean, the SPY is, it's been rough, and we are back above 420, so hopefully that gives a little boost to many stocks, including like Tesla and all the other ones. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Tesla, Tom, what is it doing?
It's coming back up today. It is pulling back a little bit. Like we said at market open, it had a really nice move to the upside. It fell like 12% yesterday, so I'm not surprised at all to see it popping back up a little bit. It's definitely coming back down now, though, over the past 15 minutes. It's definitely not looking the hottest right now. In my opinion, Mike, though, I will say Tesla is still in a pretty good setup. I think that we could end up still rising today, especially since we broke above some of these nice support or resistance levels that might now act as support. But it's definitely all over the place. I will say, Mike, like kind of like what I said, it fell 12%. So the way it's up 3% isn't anything insane in my eyes. I still believe that we need a bit more recovery to go on a nice bull run today, but I think we might see it. Lots of stocks are in the green, and if we keep seeing all this nice movement, I'm sure Tesla will come back up with the market.
Sounds good. We have Keisha saying Slab and TXN. What's going on with these semiconductor stocks? So I don't follow Slab too much, but they just reported earnings. They're up like 10%. I looked through the Thinkorswim news a little bit on them, and it looks like they raised guidance, which is good. But yeah, I mean, it's looking great off of earnings.
It is. I've actually never heard of them before, but I'll definitely look into them now if they're saying it's in the semiconductor business, because those stocks are definitely big, and I'm sure in the future they're gonna just continue to grow. So we'll have to see how this stock ends up playing out. But man, the max weekly chart, Mike, looks pretty good actually on Slab. I will say though, of course, over the past 3 to 6 months, it's been falling down with a lot of other stocks, but this earnings report definitely has some nice momentum. It's up 10%, kind of like what we've seen with XPEV and some of these China plays today.
All right, sounds good. All right. Let me just do a couple quick scans to see some big movers today. Give me 1 second. It looks like even AMC's popping up.
It is. I mean, AMC's having a great day. It's up 4%. I know AMC got really close, Mike, to that $15 support yesterday. Today, we're popping right back up. I wonder if this support will end up holding up on the daily. It doesn't look too bad here. AMC's been kind of bouncing on a lot of supports lately, so maybe we'll see another pop here. Definitely not the worst move in the world, Mike. And, this recovery up today is pretty decent. But I will say, it's not really AMC recovering, I don't think. I think they're just really moving in sympathy with the other growth plays, but I'm still glad they're moving up. It's a decent move. GameStop's kind of coming up too, so I'm glad to see the hype plays coming back.
All right, sounds good. Let's also check out Facebook, which unfortunately is not included in the I don't know, like in the uptrend, you can say. Like it's technically still down. It's trying to pop up, but I'm kind of surprised that this one isn't holding up better than like just the market.
I feel like it's doing okay today. It's just that it had that bad move in after hours, so it's making it like show up a little bit worse because it's down 1.4% because of that crazy move there. But so far today, at least since open, it's came up. But I see what you mean. It's just not a good look here. And, they report earnings after hours, and a lot of people are looking at Facebook and they're like, man, I really hope it doesn't move like Netflix. And I really hope it doesn't. I hope they report some decent numbers, and who knows, they might end up coming back. I did see an interesting article, Mike, that said that Elon Musk buying out Twitter might help increase ad revenue for Facebook. And the article went into multiple in-depth reasons as of why this could be. But, it's just, that would be pretty cool if Twitter could help raise Facebook's revenue. Of course, there's going to be tons of ads and everything like that. And, with Elon Musk in the headlines, I'm sure Facebook can push that news quite a lot too.
True. All right. So yeah, we covered most of the top movers, Tom. Are you seeing anything else in the market?
There has been some things that I've been looking at over the past few days, Mike, especially like with the VXX here. Looking at VIX, it's been kind of popping back up the past few days. And, I've been looking at a lot of different analyst reports and different things like this. And I've been seeing a lot of people talk about the VIX rising lately, Mike. And, if we go to VIX on a long-term daily chart, I was kind of throwing some technicals out here last night. And you can see that the VIX, before we got that big pop right after COVID, you can see here that the VIX was kind of in a big trend, and it finally broke that trend line back to the upside there. And you can see that it's kind of been holding a lower support trend line to the upside as well. And what's very interesting is that we're also retesting now that same type of trend line here on the VIX. And we're seeing this happen as the SPY is starting to fall off in a pretty major way. The SPY is starting to break below a lot of key trend lines here and a lot of key supports. I know a lot of people, Mike, have been saying that the SPY was kind of looking like an inverse head and shoulders pattern here on the daily setup. As we know, those technicals don't always play out the way people think. And it looks like right now that inverse head and shoulders is getting broken to the downside. I know the SPY is back up today, but over the past few days, the way we fell below 420 was pretty telling. The SPY is at a crucial price point, Mike. We have a lot of big earnings coming out, and with the way we're starting to fall below trend lines, it's not looking good ahead of this FOMC meeting next week. So I really hope that the market can start to recover here, but from what I'm seeing, it's definitely looking more bearish than bullish, at least right now. That can always change, but with everything we're seeing with the VIX and everything, it's not looking good. If the VIX gets rejected at this trend line and starts to fall back down, maybe then we'll see the SPY start to pop back up. And who knows, maybe some of these earnings will help the SPY pop back up. But as of right now, these are some pretty crazy technicals to look at, Mike. And especially whenever we look at the SPY here, I had to really clean up my chart last night because I had way too many support and resistance lines. And as I was cleaning it up, I noticed a lot of these key levels here. And it's pretty telling when you start to see the SPY getting rejected at all these different areas.
Interesting. Yeah, there we go. It's definitely been a wild market, like you said, the VIX has been popping up and stocks have been tanking and earnings have been all over the place. And when I look at this chart of the SPY, especially on a longer view, it is pretty worrying, to be honest. With the way that we're moving right now, it is definitely really concerning, and it looks like the SPY would fall more. I really hope it doesn't, because stocks are already down so much. But what part of me is wondering, Tom, is let's say we look at some of these top stocks that we talk about a lot, or even that are pretty popular among just retail traders, and not Apple or Tesla, but more stocks more let's say DraftKings, or maybe Sunrun, or Teladoc, or SPCE, or Zoom, or Palantir, stuff like that. Some of these stocks, or a lot of them, are not in the S&P 500, but for the ones that are, they don't have a giant weighting. So what I'm curious on is, let's say we have all these growth stocks that are down, a lot of them 80% or so. I wonder if we'll end up seeing the market and the S&P 500 end up trading lower, but the growth stocks just holding their ground, considering how much they fell. You know what I mean? Because I'm looking at the S&P 500's chart, and it looks really bad, but then again, that's a completely different group of stocks than the ones we look at a lot, like DraftKings, Roblox, Palantir, and stuff like that.
Yeah, it definitely is. That's a good point, Mike, because we've been kind of waiting for that transition to happen for a long time, and it hasn't really been happening yet. So maybe we will start to see that transition out of some of those larger players and into some of these smaller growth stocks. And you would think with these, like you said, with these stocks being so low and with the valuations getting to more realistic levels, you would think maybe more money, especially more big money, would start flying into these stocks. And, it hasn't really been happening yet, but I'm with you. I really think that might start to happen soon. And, with the SPY starting to dip off and things like that, you would definitely think that people would be thinking in their heads like, hey, it's time to go park some money other places. And, we have the feds raising rates and stuff, which is causing some fear as well. So who knows? There's a lot of factors that are going to maybe make people start to move their money around here pretty soon. And, I think we might be seeing the beginning of this, Mike, because we're starting to see Apple and Microsoft and a lot of these like bigger, slower. I don't want to call Apple a slow mover, but some of these bigger, steadier stocks kind of falling back down here over the past couple of weeks. So maybe we're starting to see the beginning of that, Mike. We just need to see that money now flow into some of these growth plays because they've also been falling down the past couple of weeks. But I feel like at some point we will see that happen, Mike, and hopefully it's sooner rather than later because I'm tired of seeing DraftKings down 5 or 7% every day. It's kind of getting old at this point.
Yeah, right. All right. Let's see. We have Sean saying, come on, Tom. My SPY chart looks like a set of window blinds. Oh, gosh. And then we have Anderson saying, good morning, fellas. I really appreciate what you do with your live stream. Thank you for that. He said, if you had $5,000 to invest into cybersecurity, what would be your top 3 companies for the long term? So I don't follow this industry as much as I do like the gambling industry, like DraftKings and stuff like that. Some of the best cybersecurity stocks that I have heard of are CrowdStrike, which is CRWD. Another big one is Palo Alto Networks, which is PANW. And then I also heard Cisco is pretty decent. And then Zscaler, which is ZS. Net is also pretty decent too, which is Cloudflare. So yeah, I mean, those are like the top 5 that I've seen. Honestly, I think the best way to go would be through an ETF, which is the biggest one is CIBR. This is basically a cybersecurity ETF. By buying this ETF, you're getting in basically all of the top cybersecurity companies, and the ETF just manages its weightings for you. So you don't really have to do anything. And if you really believe in the industry, an ETF is one of the best ways to go.
Yeah, I think that would be a really good way to go too. Obviously, you're not going to have the type of returns on the ETF that you would probably on an individual stock, but your risk goes way down. So I like that, Mike. I think that'll be a pretty good ETF to get into. I think this one looks pretty steady as well. Like it hasn't really fallen off too far from highs. Whereas if we go look at some of those stocks you mentioned, like Net, for example, it's down quite a bit from that all-time high. So I think that cyber will be a good way to go with that as well. Good call there, Mike. But yeah, I don't know too much about these cybersecurity stocks either. I will say, Mike, like obviously like CrowdStrike and stocks like that have been in the headlines a ton over the past couple of years regarding cybersecurity. But I know that a lot of cybersecurity stuff comes down also to like government contracts and stuff like that. So I'm just not, too familiar. I know that stocks like CrowdStrike and other ones work with the government. I'm just not sure on like which ones obviously have like the, like for example, like the best in-depth contracts and, like which ones are set to grow the most. Obviously, that's a pretty complex sector, Mike, and there's a lot of different uses for those types of cybersecurity platforms and different types of software.
All right, there we go. So, and then with the next question, we have Sun saying, what happened at 9:45 a.m.? Let's see. Not really sure. I mean, Tom, are you seeing anything notable at 15 minutes after open?
Yeah, let's see. I'm not seeing anything too crazy. Maybe they mean because like the SPY was flying up and then started to fall right back down around there. Maybe that's, like where like what they're talking about a little bit, but I don't see anything too crazy. even out of big movers like Tesla and stuff like that, I'm not seeing anything crazy besides the stock falling back down. So maybe they're just saying like, hey, a lot of stocks hit highs around there. I know it looks like Tesla hit highs there. And keep in mind, guys, I'm Central Time. So when it shows up 8:45, that's really 9:45 Eastern Time.
Yep. All right, we have Tony saying shorted the initial reaction from Microsoft earnings. Easiest 30% I made. There we go. Awesome job. Iranical said, I'm looking for a good energy ETF. Well, one of my favorite like solar ETFs is TAN, T-A-N. That one's pretty good. In terms of just like energy overall, let me see if I could find something.
I wonder if they mean like, here, let us know in the comments, whenever you say energy, let us know if you mean like oil plays as an energy, or if you mean like clean energy, because there's obviously a lot of different ETFs out there. And Mike, like if you get an energy ETF that follows oil, it's obviously going to be a lot different than a ETF that follows clean energy.
Exactly. So yeah, that's another good point. So if you're looking for like oil stocks and that type of energy, check out XLE. That one is one of the bigger ones, and it has stocks like ExxonMobil, Chevron, EOG, COP, SLB, stuff like that. And if you're looking for solar, I would check out TAN.
TAN, yeah, TAN is usually pretty good, Mike. We've talked about this one actually a lot over the past few months, or actually almost over the past couple of years. But with the way they're falling down here, they're kind of falling off with all these growth stocks. So honestly, you're getting TAN at a pretty good discount down here, Mike, and it's really close to its yearly lows, around $60. So that's good.
Yep. Alrighty, what else do we have moving? Let's see. It looks like the SPY's coming back a little bit. Some stocks are pulling back. Oh wow, yeah, it's definitely seeing a bit of a pullback.
Wow, we are. Yeah, SPY's coming back. Tesla's coming back down. Let's see Apple and Microsoft. Yeah, even they're starting to pop back. Definitely not good to see here with those stocks. You're right, my watch list has slowly been turning more and more red. A lot of these growth stocks that were popping this morning, Mike, are pulling back now. Like Square's back in the red. We have Penn Gaming now back. Target's been in the red all morning, believe it or not. Mike, maybe Target here is showing a bit of that transition like we're talking about. Target has been exploding over the past like couple months, but they got rejected right at that big resistance again, and now they're falling off. Hopefully some of that money starts to transfer back into some of these growth plays, because man, the way Target's pulling back here, Mike, is pretty telling actually. But even like Facebook, Moderna, other stocks like that, just the sell-off today is still pretty brutal actually. A lot of stocks on my watch list are down like, over 2%.
Interesting. Like even check out Boeing. Like that one just continues to bleed.
Yeah, 10% now. They're all the way down to $150. I'll be honest, Mike, I never expected a drop this big out of Boeing. I was hoping they'd end up holding up here around like that 170 to 175 support. That was looking pretty decent there, but man, we gapped down in a pretty big way. And I will say 150, Mike, is a pretty big support with Boeing. And if we look at that on the daily, they had multiple bounces at 150 last time, but I'm not sure it's going to hold up there. There's lots of selling pressure here.
All right. Let's see what else we have going.
Even poor Palantir's falling.
Oh, Palantir, dang, what is that, 3%? Wow.
Yeah, again, they're breaking below that after hours low of yesterday. And these poor growth stocks, Mike, they just keep breaking these supports and making new daily lows. It's like, is it ever going to stop? Like even, I know you mentioned this earlier, but even like Roblox is doing it again.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's just crazy, so much selling pressure, and it was looking really, really good just like 15 minutes ago?
Yeah, it was. It wasn't looking bad at all. And man, I know maybe some of these earnings plays this morning played a role, but like you said, at market open, it was looking pretty good. So I don't think that the earnings necessarily killed the stocks or anything like that. So man, I don't know. I'm looking on CNBC here, trying to find some big headlines, and I don't see anything too crazy. I will say, Mike, I do see a very interesting headline that I'm sure a lot of people who are watching the stream right now will be very interested to see this. remember Archegos last year, Mike? It
Oh,
looks like their owner is getting charged with fraud, or I should say their owner and former CFO. So that's pretty big, Mike. I know that I know a lot of people are talking about Archegos a lot over the past couple of years, and to see him having a 59-page indictment, I mean, that's pretty big. It looks like, let's see, over the course of a year, his wealth rose from 1.5 billion to more than 35 billion dollars. So, I mean, I guess when you see a rise that much, you're definitely going to get investigated by the SEC for something.
all right. Yeah, I remember that. I remember like one of the biggest stocks that kind of crashed from that was VIAC. I think they actually changed ticker symbols. I think maybe not. No, they didn't. Let's see.
Yeah, they didn't, but they had like a spin-off or something, didn't they? Or maybe they did change tickers, Mike, because when I go to the daily chart, nothing pops up. But whenever I was on like the 1 minute or something, it was coming up. Or did my internet go out?
No, I think it's PARA. No, try that.
Yeah, okay. This makes more sense. And, I'm glad they changed their name, Mike, because, Paramount has been it's been the main thing that they've been called for the past like 6 months or so. So I'm glad they changed that name. But yeah, look at the way they're down today. And, if we go to that daily chart, yeah, there it is, Mike. That's what Archegos did there. That big drop from 101 down to, let's see, what was the main low there? Like somewhere around $40 over just like 3 or 4 days.
I remember exactly when this happened. Like literally, like I was watching VIAC at the time, and I'm like, dang, this thing's down like 15%. And then like it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. Like it was such a brutal sell-off, and it was because like the the big banks were basically just closing out the extremely leveraged position, and they were just selling it for basically any price, because he got margin called, so that was brutal. And I also remember, I'm pretty sure I sold some puts like so far out of the money on this one. Like I could have swore I sold like the 20 strike puts or 15 strike puts or something, because the IV was so high and the stock was falling so rapidly, and the puts were like literally up like 15,000%.
Yeah, I couldn't believe what we were seeing when this stock was falling off like that, Mike. And man, I'm not surprised you were able to short those puts there, because I'm sure they were expensive as hell given the way it dropped. I mean, that was a brutal fall there over just 3 or 4 days. I honestly though, Mike, I will say 100 down to 40 doesn't sound too bad given what we've seen out of a lot of stocks lately, even stocks like Netflix. So I know that that's a big move, obviously not good, but man, we've just been seeing so much big moves lately. But that was such a crazy scenario. And man, like look at the volume on the chart here. The volume was insane too. I can't believe how high that was even getting. But yeah, I mean, this stock's had a lot of crazy moves, and to see that guy getting charged with fraud, Mike, is pretty funny. It's like a lot of people probably called that one happening, I'm sure. But whenever you make 1.5, whenever you turn 1.5 billion into 35, heck, I'll take a fraud charge if I had that much.
Jeez.
I mean, man, I don't know. Do you think he'll get some of that taken away? I mean, I know he will, but I'm curious on how much they'll end up freezing and end up getting rid of on him.
But like I'm pretty sure he like lost all of his money though. Like from everything I've read online, that he literally like lost almost everything. Like he was so.
Was it his money though, or was it like his fund's money?
That's a good question. From my understanding, like he lost a lot of his own money, but I would like to think that he had, some other money or other assets just under his own name, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't billions like what he was managing though. That's a
Right.
lot of money when it comes down to it. So I'm surprised he yeah, I mean, man, I'm really surprised that everything's went on the way it has regarding that situation. And I don't know. I'll have to read into that article a little bit more, but definitely an interesting headline though. I'm surprised that he's getting charged here, and I'm sure a lot of people are happy to see this. I know a lot of people have been hating on a lot of these guys that are either in hedge funds or run hedge funds for doing exactly what he got charged for, securities fraud, wire fraud, and different stuff like that. So definitely interesting. And Mike, I wonder if we'll start to see more big players get hit with fraud charges over the next couple of years, because I'm sure it took the government quite a while to, maybe get a lot of evidence on these guys, because I know it's definitely not something that happens overnight usually.
Yep, true that. All right, Tom, well, do you have any other last-minute stocks or anything you're watching?
I guess we can talk a little bit about the FOMC again. It's pretty crazy to still see this. I'm going to refresh the page here. It was 93.5% on that 100 basis point look last time. Looks like it went up to 96.5% now, Mike. This chart's been changing quite a bit over the past few weeks. It looks like now 50 to 75 basis points is back on the table for May, Mike. I know before they were looking at 100 to 125 basis points, but I guess they got a little bit more dovish over the past few days. But either way, I mean, if the Feds raise their rates that rapidly, Mike, at the May 4th meeting next week, that's going to be huge for the market. Like we talked about earlier, the SPY is at a crucial price point. Actually, talking about the SPY, Mike, look at this on the daily. It's kind of going red again today, which is not good. If the SPY ends up breaking below that low of yesterday at 413, man, we're going to start to see a pretty big sell-off. And it's crazy to see these stocks this morning turning around, Mike, because they were looking pretty good at market open. Now a lot of them are pulling back. We have the SPY selling back off, and I'm really curious to see where we end up here. Like I said, a lot of big technical levels are getting broken on the SPY, whether it's big supports, whether it's trend lines, or whether it's just technical setups not playing out the way that, I think a lot of the majority would have thought. We're starting to see a lot of big levels get broken. So, Mike, I know a lot of people think the market always goes up, but for the next couple months with all this uncertainty going on, I feel like the market just has so much weighing on it, and today is not looking good. I wonder if the VXX will start to be pretty good to play over the next few weeks, and today we're definitely seeing it start to move back up again.
Alrighty. All right, and then we have Muscle saying, thank goodness for the Johnny Depp trial live stream. It's keeping me away from staring at red all day. Keep it up, guys. Thanks. So, yeah, I mean, sometimes the best thing to do when, companies that you plan to hold for the long term, when they're just getting destroyed, sometimes the best thing to do is just, kind of try to ignore it, because you don't want to make an emotional decision that you will regret down the line. Like, if you believe in a company, you've done your research, and you want to hold it for the long term, sometimes the best thing to do is just sit on your hands. I forgot which legendary investor said it, but it was something along the lines of like, most of the money that you'll end up making is not by actually buying the stock. It's just by sitting on your hands and letting those investments actually play out. So, good stuff there. So yeah, all right, there we go. Besides that, thank you guys all so much for watching. Before we close out, I just want to personally thank each and every one of you. So thank you, Tony, George, Vicky, Keisha, Hunter, Raymond, Dennis, let's see, Sean, Anderson, Sun, Iranical, Muscle, and Couch. So thank you guys so much for joining. The market is kind of coming back down. So we're definitely set for more volatility. Besides that, have a great rest of your day.